Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday night. Hello, Heather, joining us from YouTube. Hello, everyone, as you're tuning in. Please do drop a little hello in the comments. Let us know you are watching and where you're coming from. You got two of us tonight. This is a double header. So, are you excited? We're gonna play with some fun stuff. Oh, there's Ellen and Darlene. Oh, Darlene, how are you saying hello and being on the camera at the same time? She
I have my
is
computer.
talented. I do too, but mine's all the way across the other side of the desk. So all I have is my mouse. But everyone's joining in. Hello, Debbie. Hello, everyone. So tonight you are in for a treat. You've got double trouble. You've got twice the fun. You have 2 times the learning tonight. And we're going to try this out. And if it works out well, if you like this format, then we will continue throughout the month of, I was going to say November. We're not in November yet. We're only in October. We will continue through the month of October doing some of these fun head-to-head challenges, friendly competitions. Don't worry, we're not going to be voting or anything else. You don't have to pick. It's like picking between your children, picking between your favorite PCW person. I know is a tricky thing, though Matt would definitely say that he is everybody's favorite. So,
I agree.
yeah, for sure.
Feel
So,
outvoted.
yes. Alan say it's our version of You've Been Cropped. Yes, it's a little bit like that. So tonight, well, not tonight, a couple weeks ago, I did a little demo, a little learning live on coloring. And Darlene loves to watercolor. I love my Copic markers here. So we thought, you know what, let's show you 2 different ways to kind of solve the same creative challenge. And both of us are going to be using AALL Create Holiday stamps tonight and creating a card, but doing them in different ways. So like I said, I'm going to be doing Copic markers and Darlene is going to be doing a watercolor. So we're going to start off. And maybe even before I get into that, if you do have questions, if you need us to slow down, we're also going to try and flip between the screens a little bit. If you need to see things closer up, if you need us to help you see a little bit better, please do put that in the comments. I will do my best to be watching, and Darlene's watching on her computer. But we will try to make sure that we balance this out so that you can see all of the things, but also see us working somewhat side by side. I know there's all kinds of different functionality. Maybe that would be a fun one. Things I can do with my screen, but I don't always know what I'm doing, or sometimes how to get them back to where they're supposed to be. But we will do our best to try and make sure you guys can see everything we are doing. And if we're not succeeding, please do let us know in the comments. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the materials that I'm going to be using and how kind of what my vision or my plan is for my card. So let me do that first. So as I said, we've each chosen a AALL Create holiday stamp set, and I think Darlene has actually got a couple that she's going to do her famous scene building. I'm going to be mostly playing with this little guy, and I will tell you that the image on the packaging is smaller than what he is in real life. Not a lot smaller, but a little bit smaller. So we definitely do have some room to work and to play with this little guy. And as I was looking at this guy, as I was planning, I thought, you know what would be super cute is if he was a bobblehead. So my long-term plan for today's session is I'm actually going to decapitate him. No, it's not a Halloween episode, but I am going to take his head and I am going to put it on a wobbler. So what that means for me is I am actually going to color him twice. All of him on one image and then just his head on a second image. So if you see me stamping it twice, that's why. In fact, I am actually going to stamp him a third time because I want to have kind of a placement for him on my background for when I am coloring my background. And I'll get into that when I actually start stamping and showing you what I'm doing. But if you see me stamping him 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times, trust me that there is a method to the madness. For paper, I have the Prism Studios Solar White Ultra Smooth. This is 100% my go-to white cardstock for coloring. It is very, very similar to the Nina Classic Crest Solar White, always a mouthful. In fact, it is my suspicion that this is Nina just in a Prism package. And then for ink, I am using my Memento Tuxedo Black. If you are coloring with Copics, you really just want to make sure you have an ink that says that it is alcohol ink friendly. I've been coloring for close to 20 years, and Memento was the one that I learned with. Memento is the one that I keep going back to, so that's why it's my personal favorite. But if you're just starting out, I do encourage you to try a couple of different inks to find the one you like. And then for that one that I said that I was doing on the background, just as placement, I'm going to use Desert Sand. This is also can be used for no line coloring. And really all you want is a light color that I'm going to put him right kind of in the middle. So when I'm doing my background, I kind of have a sense of space without having to guess. So beyond that, I've got my markers, I've got my block, I've got some pattern paper here that we might be using later on. I've got a couple of dies in case I feel like getting, die cutting out my shape. And that is all that I have to work with tonight. Darlene, maybe before I hand over to you, I'm just going to stamp my images so people can see what I'm doing. And then we can flip over to you.
Sounds
good?
Yeah.
Okay, so on this card here, I'm going to stamp him twice in black. And on this card over here, am I going to do a vertical or a portrait card? Or a vertical or a landscape card? Let's change it up and do a landscape card. So I'm going to take my little guy and put him on my block here. If you want to use a Misty, I mean, by all means, a Misty gives you lots of options to restamp if you need to. I'm going to start by stamping him in that desert sand. I tend to get that name wrong, but. And what I'm going to do is he's just going to go pretty much dead center. Like so. And he's nice and light. We are going to probably cover up much, if not all of him, but he is there for placement. And then over on this side here, I'll get my black out. One thing I realized I don't have out yet is when you are coloring with Copic markers, you want to have a piece of scratch paper, printer paper, that kind of thing underneath to kind of absorb the ink and help draw the ink through your paper. So I have to get that, but I can do that while Darlene is talking in a minute. All right, so I've got him stamped twice here in black, one of which I'm going to color the whole thing. The other one, I'm just going to color his head. And then I have my desert sand for background. And Darlene's asked in the questions here, what is your favorite way to color? Let us know. Maybe we'll see at the end what the vote ends up being. All right, Darlene, over to you.
Thank you. Oh, I can't wait to see what Sheri makes. So I am also using the AALL Create the Holiday series. I am using this little girl here called Emily Ann's Sweet Season. And I'm going to pair it up with a little gingerbread house called Candy Lane. I'm doing a lot of watercoloring, so just today I decided instead of using my little ink pads to watercolor with, I'm using the watercolor pencils from Tim Holtz. I have a few of his sets here just because I needed to make sure I had one set that had the flush tone colors for the face, so I have those there. I am using Vicky Budin's Foundations paper. I love to watercolor with it because it's a smooth surface. It is also 140 pounds, so you can put layers and layers of water for your watercoloring. So I am using hers today. I already cut some panels out for us to use. I'm also using a little bit for my background. I've decided to do a little bit of an embossing powder. So I'm using the Snowflake stencil, which is from Lawn Fawn, with the Wow embossing ink pad and clear embossing powder. And then we're going to put watercolor on top of it. So it's like a little bit of a resist technique there. And one thing I took out is my paint palette. This is a PCW paint palette. It is magnetic, so it can go, you can use it as like a glass mat. But the perfect thing about this is that you can paint on top of it. So it's going to be my little paint palette right behind here. So first things first, just to get started is...
Before you go on, Darlene.
Yes.
Ellen wants to know if you're decapitating anyone today.
No, I'm not. That's Sheri's job today. You know, I always joke and say, you know, we have lots of professions when we're crafting. And, you know, I see, I make it sound nicer. We do a little bit of plastic surgery instead. So, you know, we have multiple professions, but no, I am not today. One other additional item I am using is Willow Wolf's one of her sets for paintbrushes. This is set number 6. And I took out 2 brushes, which is my round tip and my flat tip. So I already have it soaked in water. That way it's ready to go when we start watercoloring. But first thing I want to do is stamp my images. So I have my little tiny Misty. I also have my grip, the waffle flower grip mat there. I'm addicted to this grip mat. I love using it for everything. And where's my panels? I have 2 panels here. And what I'm going to do is line it up at the corner. And I'm going to make sure it's smushed at that corner, because once we watercolor, I'm going to put back my panel inside my Misty and stamp the black ink again, just to reinforce the color a little bit. So that's stuck in there. And let's pull out the items I am using. So I am using the little gingerbread house. So I'm going to place it here because I want to make sure I have room for all the pieces I want to use. And I have my little girl. I love their winter girls. So you know, you can color in different colors. I know the sample packaging has her in that red outfit, like, you know, Mrs. Claus, but you can change up the colors. So we could for sure do that. And I'm actually going to space it out because I am going to fuzzy cut for my scene here. And I'm going to add this tree at the top. So let me make sure I put all this aside so it doesn't drop in the garbage. And I'm just going to position, you know what, I'm going to switch this so there's a little bit more room and put that here. And because I'm fussy cutting, it doesn't matter which direction we're stamping as long as I can restamp later on. We're going to push that down. The ink I am using is the Gina K Amalgam ink. It is a hybrid ink, so you can do Copic coloring or watercoloring with it. So that's the one I chose for tonight. I did ink it up prior to here, so it's nice and juicy. And we're just going to ink this up. So the one thing I want to make sure I do is keep the stamps in there. I have a tendency to take them up and clean them up right away after I stamp it. But we want to go back in to do a restamp after we watercolor. So let's make sure I don't do that, because the hard part is lining it all back to stamp on top. So let me just use my hand and push down. And let's lift up. And I missed the hat there, so let's do that again. And here. Let's make sure I get that gingerbread house and the hat pushed down. The nice thing about having in this platform is that I can stamp and stamp until I have it. So I'm just going to do a little touch up on her little holly leaves on her hat here, just this corner. And she is ready. I am going to peel it off and do another panel because I want another tree And because I only have the one stamp, I'm just going to redo the whole thing. And it's a good idea to do another one just in case, you know, your water bleeds out or your colors get mucky. At least you have a spare and you don't have to repeat the process. Everything's already in the stamping platform. So let's get this going. And then I'm just going to leave it aside to dry a little bit as I work on the background. Gina's ink does dry quickly, but I like to be for sure, especially working with water. So let's do, and it's always that holly leaf in the top of the gingerbread house. So I'm gonna really push down. Sorry if the camera's shaking, but let's get that going. Oh, missing that chimney here. Hold on. I think I'm right over here. Worst comes to worst, you take a marker. So I like using either the La Pen marker to trace and fix up my boo-boos. There. So this is all set. And I'm gonna close this up. How's Sheri doing over there?
I'm doing okay. So I just started coloring up my little guy here. I went ahead while I was getting prepped and just kind of picked out some different color combinations that I'm going to play with, and that way I've got them all right here beside me. Now these images are a little bit on the smaller side, so some of them I may only be able to get 2 colors in when I'm shading. Typically with a Copic coloring, you would do 3 shades, a light, a medium, and a dark. But because these guys are smaller, 2 shades for the most part will get the job done. So I'm working on coloring his face here, and then I'm going to be flipping over and I will be coloring this guy in his entirety. Kind of wish I'd done it the other way around. So that way with this guy, if I decided I wanted to change my colors, some of his face is going to get covered up, but you know what? I'm pretty good with what my decisions are. So I'm just coloring away.
I know, right? We get to color our happy place. Sheri and I love to color. So this is fun. We like to use Copics and we like to watercolor. So tonight we get to do one of each, which is amazing. Oh, Matt's on. Okay, so I'm going to create my background, and I have my dauber over, well, my little tool here with the domed foam, and I'm just going to pounce the watermark ink onto the little snowflakes here and cover it up. I just wanted something in the background, and I thought this was nice. You could for sure do paste as well. But I figure doing this is a quicker dry than paste. So let's just pounce.
It's going to give you that nice resist look when you're done, though.
And I had a hard time. I was debating if I should do clear embossing powder or white, but I decided just to use white so you can actually see it. But I'm just pouncing here. The best way if you're doing embossing powder over, like embossing ink over stencil, is make sure your pad is juicy. I just shifted.
Juicy.
Yeah. So you could tell mine's a little juicy. I can see that little gloss on it. And anywhere that gets missed, we can always, you know, add an embellishment on it. So I have a scrap paper here. I'm just going to pour my embossing powder on top. So this is the Superfine Ranger White Embossing Powder. And I'm just going to pour.
So while you're doing that, I'm just going to bring mine up a little bit closer just to kind of show what I'm working on. On my hat here, I don't know if it's going to show up very well. There we go. I'm nice and close. I'm really just building in my shadows. All of those places on his hat that I want to be behind that crown is getting the shadow. And I don't know if you noticed, but I used a little bit of gray on his eyeballs, not because he is sickly in any way, but simply, again, just to give it that little bit of definition. And that's where some of the lighter colors in the Copic spectrum can really help you get the shading without it being too, there being too much emphasis on it. So that's what I'm working on. I'm almost finished here, and then I'm going to go and repeat over in the full shape, and we can come back to mine after Darlene's done embossing.
Yeah, I'm just heat embossing, so you'll hear a little bit of noise. Just doing it at the side. So I'm just melting my powder. Quite noisy, but love how it melts.
And I'm going to give my little elf some little pink cheeks.
Make them look jolly. Okie dokie. So I'm just going to take a quick look, make sure all my powder has melted. Going to wave it a little bit because once it's still hot and you touch it, it's going to smush. So I'm just going to fan it quickly. Shouldn't take that long. And now it's cold. And we're just going to do a quick little watercolor on top. Actually, I'm going to do it over here so I don't muck up my paper. And let's do like a dark sky. So I'm going to do some blue. Where's my blue? So I'm using the Tim Holtz, the watercolor. And the nice thing about this is that you can take the paint, like the color off the actual pencil, or you can scribble on a surface and color that way. But because I'm doing a sky, I want to make sure I have lots of color. And do I have, I'm going to actually mix two blues. Oh, that's a purple. Let's grab. The hard part is choosing colors. Oopsies. So I'm just going to mix.
Because you want to use them all.
Right? Yeah. And I have a paper towel beside me to drop. So I'm just adding some water into my palette. And I'm just going to go right on top. And you can see how it's beading already. I'm not sure if you could see that. It's resisting. Such a cool technique, but it gets you taking out like your embossing powder and your stencils. So
well, and that's the thing. If you're not using it, you're not having enough fun.
Exactly. So I need some more color. So I'm going to scribble. Scribble, scribble, scribble. And I just need to add the blue just to the top because we're going to add some snow at the bottom. I cheated. I used glitter paper for the snowbanks. I like glitter.
Not cheating. It's using the tools at your disposal.
That's true. And let's add a little bit more blue. So the more pigment you have, the darker it is. And I'm just going to put just a little bit of water just to mix it up. But I'm going to try to get this darker. And I'm using my flat brush because it's easier to get nice coats over top. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You want to highlight some dark and light, just like our sky. It's not an even blue. And let's scribble. And you can actually go direct to for color. Yeah, so I'm just going to do splotchy in random. So there's dark and light. Smooth. I want to make sure I got my corners. And I'm going in one direction so you don't see the different lines. And I like that. Look at that. nice guy. So I'm happy with that. We're going to put it aside and let it dry. And I'm going to start watercoloring my images because that takes some
All right,
time.
while you're getting changed.
Yeah.
While you're getting changed over, I'm going to take over the screen.
Okie
I've
dokie.
now colored the hats on both of my little guys. And I'm going to go back and just show you how I do the skin tone. So with the skin tone is one of those ones where you got lots of options and lots of variety, but I also find that I have some real go-to colors that I always go to. And E00 and E11 tend to be the ones that I go to most often. And just like I demonstrated a couple of weeks ago, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by taking my lightest color and I'm going to cover the whole surface, not his eyeballs, but whatever is skin here, and get a nice base coat down on his face. Now I am covering up his nose. I will do his ears. Really trying to be mindful of the eyeballs. Things that you want to keep white, you almost don't want to go right to the line. You want to give a little bit of space so that if the marker does bleed, then you've got a little bit of room to play. So I've done his legs now and his little hands. Though those probably could have been stockings and mittens, but I'm gonna make him a nice warm weather elf. I'm now going in with the darker area and really just pulling out the areas that are in shadow. So underneath his hat, he will be in shadow. And as you come down his nose, he's going to have a little bit of a shadow underneath his nose and down the sides of his cheeks. And it starts to look like one of those makeup videos where they've got their foundation into place, but it hasn't blended in yet. That's very much the same thing that we're doing here. We're getting his foundation in there, and then we're going to blend it. So there, and underneath again, go back to my lightest one, and I want to pull the dark color into the light color. That's going to help to smooth out that blended or that line between the two colors. And see, that's all blending out there nicely underneath his forehead. And I'm going to come back. I'm always going in one direction from the dark to the light. Sometimes that's a little hard when they're close together. I find it much easier to move by paper than to try and get my hand around. It's so much easier to move that paper. But look how nice and smooth that has worked out on his face. Now his hands, his ears, everything else is so small, it's going to be really hard to blend. So I'm not going to do too much. I'm going to do a little bit down here on the bottoms of his ears and maybe just a titch. Again, where those shadows are going to be. So I've just done the bottoms of his ears, the bottoms of his hands, and I've actually done the tops of his legs because his shorts are going to be what is providing the shadow. And then it's not going to take much at all to just blend out that line. And everything starts to ease and smooth out. Now that's definitely a tip when it comes to Copic coloring. If you find that you're getting frustrated, it's very easy to overwork it. So if you're getting a little frustrated, the best thing you can do is either walk away, go grab a cup of tea, grab a snack, have a potty break, or move on to a different area. Sometimes when it takes a minute or two for that ink to really settle into the fibers, and it's okay to leave it and let it dry a little bit so that it will even out on its own. Now, two last things I'm going to add. I've got this color here that is literally called lipstick that I'm going to use on his lips. And I'm going to give him some little pink rosy cheeks like I have over here. And that's the nice thing about Copics, is that you can color over an area that you have already colored. Assuming, of course, you've got a lighter color to work with, but and it's just going to blend in really nicely on its own because it's still a little bit wet. So we've got some fun and some playtime in there. Now, the one thing I did differently is this one here, the crown, I did 2 darker shades of red and I found there wasn't enough. So on this one, I did a lighter shade and then the darker shade. So this one's now going to be my bobblehead. So now, even though I've colored his skin, I'm going to go over and do this one because this is going to be my base. This is going to be my bobblehead. And we're just going to keep on keeping on. All right, while I work on that, we'll go back to Darlene. She's starting to color in her images and you can see where she's at.
So I'm on the gingerbread house. I did the first layer of color on my tree. I did both trees at the same time, just to get those drying. And then once that dries a little bit, I can go back in and do some highlights, so shading. So just like what Sheri's doing with the whole shading, so there's some, dark spots and light spots. You can do the same thing with watercoloring, but you want to make sure it's dried before you add a second layer, or it just dilutes as you keep putting color in. So I'm just doing a quick thin layer. You can tell that it's just really muted. There's not a lot of color. And then once it dries, I can put it darker. You can also mix colors. So I'm using Rusty Hinge because it has that like gingerbread type cookie look. So while that's drying, I am going to color my girl. Great thing is I can just keep turning it around, and I will clean up my paint palette so I can add another color. I just find that sometimes going directly to the pencil for color is easier. I think she needs to have a purple outfit, because why not, right? So let's put, and I don't know, I like purples and blues together. So I'm going direct, just taking color, and I'm going to start on her hat. So adding some color. It is very light because my paintbrush has water, but this is a great foundation. It also helps your watercolors move. And then I'm just going to pick up more color off the actual brush and go on top. And I'm not so worried about going outside the lines tonight, the stamped image, because I am going to fuzzy cut them out. If you are using them directly on your project, then yes, of course, you have to take a little bit more action. But today I'm okay because I can cut off those mess. My paintbrush is a little dry because it's not picking up color. Another way you could do is just dip the tip into the water and make it wet that way. It's a quick way to do it as well. And here, her outfit, I just gotta keep an eye on which one's her scarf and which one is her jacket. I just love watercoloring. I love how easy it is, but it's relaxing. Any type of coloring is quite fun and easy. So there I am coloring her
Darlene,
outfit.
I'm just going to take over the screen just for a second here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to just show that sometimes if you're not sure where to put your shading, your stamp set is going to give you some hints. So if you see on my little elf here, and I'm sure it's very similar on Darlene's fabric as well, you actually have some little lines, some little fabric indicators, some shading indicators. So even on my crown, he's got those little points in there that's going to indicate that there needs to be some dimension, needs to be some shading. So definitely feel free to take your cues from your stamped image. Let it tell you where to do the shading. Or if you're lucky, you can look at your packaging photo as well. And often, like, you can see that under his arm and a same place around the crown like I did, it's got some darker color. So use the things you've got, use the tools at your disposal, and don't be afraid to like literally copy what they have, the hints they have given you.
Yeah, they also added.
All right, you know what? Let's go back side by side.
Yeah, I know when I was watching Abs, who's the owner of All in Create, even in the inside of the packaging has, I guess, a closer up. It looks like the same size, but now these are colored. They used to be black and white as well. So just don't throw out your packaging, because those are great ways to get some help and tips.
Exactly.
Oops.
So Sharon is saying she's joining late because the Jays are up 2-1. Woohoo!
Ooh! That's exciting. So I'm just making it darker now, my hat. And gonna wash that out. Before I change color, I need to make sure that my paintbrush is color free. So I kind of went over here. I'm just taking some of that water to go on top just to take off some of that color. And I'm going to pick up the water that I just laid down where my boo-boo was and just pick it up with the paper towel. Okay, so while that is drying, I'm going to go back to my tree and add some more color. So I'm just taking a different green just so I have two shades a little bit. And I'm just gonna lighten it up a little bit here, here. And here.
Now, one other tip that this is going to be a do as I say, not as I'm necessarily doing tonight. Typically, when I color, I will do more than one image and practice and play with my color combinations. And then what I will do is, much like I've done on this little card here, I will do like a little swatch of color up at the top and actually write out. So this was BG05 and BG09. Especially if this is one that I think that I'm going to color over and over and over again. I am never going to be able to look at this and remember what colors I used. So having a second copy where I have that written down and I'll store it in like a little photo album really gives me a nice cheat sheet. And it inspires me the next time I go to use either this same stamp set or even another one to see what the color combinations are. So if you're going to go to all the trouble to get everything out, do it twice.
Yep, totally agree. And that way, if you need to do something very quickly, you already have your color swatched out and you don't have to rethink. Okay, so
or even if you make a boo-boo.
That's right. That's why I do stamp a lot, just in case. But I'm going to add a little bit of gray on the icing part, like the rooftop here. But I might do, what color is this? The speckled egg a little bit. So it has that bluish green tone for a little bit of snow highlight. I don't know if might have to do it direct. Just to add a little bit of shading on the snow. And then I'll go in and color all the little candy bits on the gingerbread. But I didn't want this stark white, so I'm gonna just add a little bit of shadow on the top here, as well as the little snow banks. So I'm just going on the edges with a little bit of the speckled egg. It's a blue-gray. And I forget this. Now the door. Actually, let's do a highlight. So I'm just adding a little bit of highlight. Just on the rooftop here. Okay. And then I'm going to color the door. And do this.
When we do coloring, whether it's with watercolor or with Copic markers, we talk a lot about shading. Well, you can also do some highlights. So I'm going to, again, try and come as close as I can. I've just used a white gel pen, just in little areas on his crown, on his nose, and that's going to give me my highlight. So the opposite of shading is you want something a little bit brighter. So those gel pens, those pens that you got in your collection, they can really work along with whatever you're coloring. With the watercolor, I would suggest that you wait till it's dry. I also went in with a journaling pen and gave him some freckles. So you can really alter them and have some fun with these little guys.
And the white gel is really good for
now I'm going to fussy
shape
cut his
too.
head out, and I'm going to fussy cut.
She's fussy cutting.
Yes, they are good for covering. Sorry, I was talking over you, Darlene.
No, it's okay.
That's the trouble with the head. You can absolutely use that white pen to, if you've gone outside of the lines, to kind of cover up those boo-boos. So I'm going to go ahead now. I'm done coloring. There are my little guys. And I'm going to go ahead and start fussy cutting. Aww.
Yeah, if you know Sheri, she does a fussy cut. Okay, there's my house.
I will color. I will fussy cut only if I have to.
Okay, I'm going to make her look like me, even though her name's Emily. We'll pretend it's Darlene. So I'm going to put some black hair here. Oh, too much, too watery. And let's leave black hair. Oh, that's her scarf. And then there. So just color. While that is drying, I'm going to go in with my green and color. I forgot about these leaves here, the holly leaves. So let me color, take some color. And with black, I always have to make sure it's extra clean because you don't want it to spread with your other colors here. Okay. Now let's add some berries with the red. Grabbing my red. Oh, I got barn door, which is a darker red, but that's okay. And just color there. Let's do her lips, her heart-shaped lips. Okay, while she is drawing there, let's finish off the tree. Where's the brown? Grab some brown for the tree trunk. And the nice thing is, because we're not putting a heavy layer on it, it doesn't take long to dry. So having a couple images stamped out and just working one, switching to the other, going back and forth is quite fast. Okay, I'm just gonna take off some water so I can get this darkened.
So folks, if you have any questions, please do pop them in the comments. And yes, Ellen, I did decapitate my little guy. But trust me, it's all going to be worth it.
Yeah, I want a bright blue.
Now I just got to make sure I don't cut his legs off on this one. This is good practice for World Fussy Cutting Day, which is coming up at the end of the month.
Okay, who likes to fussy cut? Because I sure do. I know, it's relaxing. I could just sit there and fussy cut. If I'm not, coloring, fussy cut is my next thing.
So Darlene is the one that you want to go to class with and sit beside so she can do your fussy cutting for you. Darlene, Ellen is asking in the comments, do you prefer watercolor or Copics?
It really depends what it is. For some reason, I think it's what brand I'm using. With All in Create, I really like to watercolor with. I think it's because the images are more detailed. But if it's like Lawn Fawn or what else is there? Trinity stamps, all those kind of stamps, I like to color with Copics. But I also find that Copics is cleaner. Watercolor, you make a mess. If you could see my side of the table here, it's quite messy already. So there's pros and cons, but
well, and I think the point you made is a good one, that you said, well, it depends on what images. Yeah. All in Create tends to have more of that. I don't want to say abstract, because you certainly know what they are, but they are a little bit less realistic. They are a little bit more artsy or mixed media-y. So having a looser, less controlled coloring medium really fits with those images.
I totally agree. Yeah.
That's not to say you can't color these with Copics.
I love my Copics. You do. Watercoloring is just a nicer way, well, not another way for you to use what you have at home, because you can watercolor with your water-based inks, right? I did a smush here, so I'm going to fix it. But how I fix that smush is I add a big dollop of water, and then I picked it up with the paper towel. So it kind of dilutes a little bit. Water always dilutes color. Red is a little bit trickier. So this is where I brought my gel pen to do my oopsies. But the I guess I put too much red there, and it kind of bled through. So the one thing that we always have to remember is that anything with water, so watercolor will pool with other water. So if you have a water spot there that's not dry, your watercolor ink will kind of go towards water. So it's tricky, but like, it's fixable. So I'm just adding my paintbrush with just water just to take more of that oopsies there, because red is horrible. Not horrible, but hard to fix. Okay.
Well, and I think even fixing mistakes is even something that you need practice on. So the more you watercolor, the more you color, the more mistakes you're going to make, the more times you're going to have an opportunity to fix them and learn the ways that work and learn the ways that don't. So Ellen has got another question.
Yep.
For both of us, is there a medium type that you don't like to use for coloring?
Pencil crayons.
Answer is no.
Mine is pencil crayons.
Darlene just said she doesn't like pencil crayons. I do like pencil crayons. It gives a completely different look. I would say if I were to rank my preferences, it would be Copics, then pencil crayons, and then watercolor. For me, that's my personal preference.
Mine would be...
But I always tend to be the less messy person. So.
Yes. I prefer Copics, is still my number one, but watercoloring is a close second. I like to use pencil crayons. I do have them, but I find them harder for me to blend and have that nice, flow of dark, like shadows and stuff. So still a learning process for that. But I like doing pencil crayons with the Mandela.
And then Sharon is asking, what kind of ink pen do you like? Now, Darlene is an ink pen junkie, so I will let her answer first.
It depends. Like if it's for writing, I like my Le Pen. So Marvy has a really good journaling pen because I work in a lot of like through my agendas and like my daily planners, and I am very fussy when things are ghosting. So I tend to use things that don't ghost. But Le Pen is a really good brand, whether you're using the black to do like fine point detail or, you know, fixing up your boo-boos if you didn't stamp properly. I really like their stuff.
Yeah, I was just looking through my stash. I don't think I actually have a Le Pen nearby, but we do offer the different kinds in the store. For me, I am less picky. Not to say that Darlene is picky, but I'm happy with a lot of different kinds of ink pens, and will generally use the one I can find versus any particular one. But I know for me, so for my freckles, I use this Copic one that is a 0.1, which is like a really, really, really fine detail. Um, a fine detail nib. I tend to be very heavy handed, so I have to be careful with those fine ones because I will split them. So I tend to go more with a broader nib. So this one is a 0.8. And Sharon, the white gel pen that we were talking about is the Jelly Roll. Again, I prefer the bolder tip, either the 8 or the 10. There are some finer ones, but I tend to like the bolder ones for what I use it for.
Yeah, I have an 8 here. 8 and 10 is good. They're good. I find is it the 5 or the 3? That's really fine.
It makes it really hard to see.
Yeah. So I'm just doing the face and then I'll start fuzzy cutting. I just looked up at the time. See? Precious time when
That's
it comes
okay.
to
I think when there's two of us, we can afford to go a little bit longer. So, Darlene, while you're finishing up and while you start on your fussy cutting, I'm going to go ahead and do my background.
Okay.
So yeah. I'm going to move mine onto the big screen. So what I've done here is, like I said, I've stamped him in this desert sand, very faint brown, kind of tanny brown color. And that is my long-term intention, is that I'm going to cover him up. So really, this is just meant to be an anchor. It's meant to be kind of a guideline so I know where he's going to go, because I'm going to use some lighter colors. And I think I'm going to go in here with like the BG 10, 11, and 13. Where did my 10 go? There's my 10, my 11, and my 13. And I'm going to create a background. So I'm going to start with the lightest one. And this is one of the few instances where I will use the wedge tip. And I know he's going to get covered up, so don't freak out when I do this. But I'm just going to start drawing radiating lines out from the center of him. It's okay. I'm doing it on purpose. And I'm just going to build and build. And this marker is a little bit drier. I can see I'm not getting a ton of great coverage, but we're going to be doing lots of blending, so I'm not too worried about that. All right. So that's my lighter color. Now I'm going to go in with the next darker color. You know what? I might even skip one. Let's go to the 13. And back to my brush tip. I'm going to build these radiating lines out like this. So Copics aren't just for coloring images. You can also use them to create backgrounds. So let's see if we can smooth this out. Maybe I will have to go to my middle one here. And just create this really cool background. And yes, I'm getting lots and lots of coverage through the back, which is why you definitely want to have that paper underneath, especially if you're doing it on like your antique dining room table or something. You do not want to have your ink transfer through. And here we go. And we're coloring. We've got this nice background. And he's going to come on here like this. And this is what it's going to start to look like. It's got that really nice radiating look. Now, I am finding my blend. Oops. Did I do it? Yeah, I did the right one. My lines maybe aren't blending out quite as nicely as I like, but I'm just going to go with it. This is a learning experience. And now I'm going to grab a darker one. So this is BG18. And this is where I'm going to use some dots. You don't always have to do lines. And I'm making these radiating dotted lines just to give him a little kind of sparkly background. How are you doing, Darlene?
Good. So I've done pretty much all the watercoloring. I'm just going to put it back into my Missy just to re-stamp it. That way all those lines that got colored.
Okay. Sorry, I'm going to make you big in a second. I just want to call attention because something did happen with my marker. If I had a big blob, and sometimes that happens with a Copic marker, this barrel is pressurized, but sometimes that pressure gets out of whack. So here's how you fix it. You take the other lid off, and we're going to let it sit. I can come back to this. I'm almost done, but this is going to help it pressurize. So if you start getting these blobs, unfortunately, you got to be really careful and be watching your marker. It got really, really shiny and then blobbed. But taking the other cap off is going to help repressurize that barrel. So there, a happy accident. All right, Darlene, all yours.
Okie dokie. I just heat drying it just to make the next step a little quicker, because you want to make sure it's completely dry before you stamp on top of it. So I am just putting my heat gun quickly on top. I see some of my little candy bubbles. You can tell it's glistening, so it's still a little bit wet. And I don't want that to smush. But okay, so I think I'm okay. I'm going to make sure I push it right at the corner. Everything is sticking, so when this goes back on top, hopefully, cross my fingers that it's lined up. And we're just going to ink it up and stamp on top. That way it just darkens the lines. So here, so right at the corner, and I'm just going to push it down. Perfect. So I just darkened the lines, which is really nice. So the lines that got muted during watercoloring, now the black ink is on top, which is perfect. I just realized I forgot the eyeballs, but I can go back in quickly. And I just need to do this one here, but really the tree that needs to be inked up. So I just wanted 2 trees. So let me just do the tree and just push that down. Perfect. I love how now it looks really crisp. I'm going to put this aside so that way when I finish coloring the other ones at home, I can go on. So I am just going to fuzzy cut. If Sheri has, because I know she's working on her background, we can switch.
Well, I am just about ready to start assembling. So what I did is I took my piece here and see all those radiating dots. I think they look so fun. I've trimmed that panel down a little bit so that I can put it on a piece of pattern paper. And I'm really just going to start assembling. That marker that was a little bit drippy, I've just left the cap off. I'm going to be leaving it with the caps off until after our live. So I'm going to put the caps with it so I don't lose them. Ellen says she actually likes it when we make boo-boos because she learns how to fix it. So that's always good to hear that you are okay with our boo-boos. Where did I put my card base? Oh, here it is behind me. So I've just got a standard A2 card base. Let's glue these guys down. So this green is an older lawn fawn. I recently went through and kind of sorted through all my 6x6 pads. Most of them were lawn fawn, and most of the other ones that I didn't keep. So lawn fawn always has some really great basics that you can use for so many different occasions. All right, now I'm going to put this guy, my fully colored guy, flat onto the space. I can still see the outline of where my little anchor was, so I can line him up perfectly. Boop. Make sure I get his little feet. And maybe a little bit more over here, a little bit more over here. Flip them over. So even just like that, look at how stinking cute he is.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you do things and you're like, I don't know if it's going to work out. And then there are times when it works out even better than what you thought it was going to be. Where did his other head go? There's his other head. That's important. So now I'm going to take one of these wobblers. If you have never used a wobbler before, you are missing out. You can see here that this side here is thinner. This side here is thicker. Personally, I like to put the thicker side on top. So I'm going to flip my head over. I'm going to peel that backing up. Come on. And that heavy part is going to go behind his head. Like so. Doesn't have to be directly center as long as it's close to center. And then I'm going to peel off this other backing, which, trust me, is going to be the hardest part of this card. Especially when all of you are watching. So that backing, that peels up. And now this can go right over top. Try to line it up as best you can. Like that. And there he is. There he is, a wibbling and a wobbling. And that's the reason why I did color the original face underneath, is so that because you do actually see underneath, it just makes it look a little bit more complete. And then all I need to do last is stamp my sentiment I think I will do, you know what? I may do all three. Still wrapping, still lost, elf employed. Just like we are. We are elf employed. How are you making out with your fussy cutting, Darlene?
I'm on my little girl. It's almost done. At least they're easy to cut out. They're not one of the harder ones. She's easy, so almost done. So almost done here. Coloring the little pom-pom from her hat. And around her jacket. I just realized I didn't color her shoes, but that's an easy fix. One thing I'm also going to do is there's a white space just where her hair and her candy cane is. I'm putting my scissors in and I'm going to snip that triangle out. Well, that odd shape.
And that's always a choice because I have little armholes as well, but mine are really small. So I just left them. And I don't think anybody's going to be looking closely enough to say, Sheri, you didn't cut out your armholes. and if they do, they have to give the card back.
Back, right? Okay, so let me just add. Let me fix her shoes. Let's give her purple shoes since I have the purple right beside me. So purple shoes. And then let's also gonna do her little mitts. And the chimney. So now that my fuzzy cutting's done, I'm ready to do the background. So let's grab our panel. So this is a panel that we did earlier with the stencil, with the embossing ink and powder, and then we did a watercolor background. I have my glitter paper. I'm just going to put a little bit of glitter here. You could use stickles or anything shimmery. I like glitter, especially on my holiday cards. I think I already had this cut at 5.5. So I think my hill, let's do 2 1/4 because I'm going to tear to get that nice tear look for snow. Sorry. I might, yeah. So I'm just going to tear. I'll always do a little bit more, and then if I have to tear more, then I'll go a little bit lower. I know. But I just like that teared look for hills. That's perfect. And let me find my adhesive. Oh, that one's out. Thank goodness I have like 3 tape runners here. This one's good. So I'm just adding some tape. Tape runner, my hill, and then we're just gonna add. Where is my? So this is your choice if you want to add foam to raise it up. But the fun part is creating scenes, and I love creating scenes. And I need a half. I'm going to put here. I think I'm going to put the gingerbread here. So I'm going to puff this one up as well. Oh, do I have another foam square? Oops. Ran out of big ones. And think I'm going to put the house towards the back so I can actually put her closer to the front. This tree, I'm going to put it in the background, so I'm going to do it flat, adhere it flat, and probably behind the snow hill. And she's going to go right over there. I'm going to call her Miss Darlene. She's her gingerbread house. I think I just need to add, like, you know, draw some glasses on her and she'll look like me.
There you go.
Put it right over here.
So Heather says it's nice to get a review of both ways to color. And that, Heather, you know what? You nailed it right on the head. That's exactly why we decided to do this tonight.
Yeah.
Now, Ellen says the purple outfit is the best. I don't know. I am kind of partial to the red, green, and blue.
Yeah, right?
Not gonna lie. Look. But you know what? That's the beauty of being creative, is you can do what works for you.
And it doesn't have to be holiday. If you're not a holiday fan, you can change it up, because essentially she's in a winter outfit. So but there, just adding
Ellen wants to see the wobbly head again. Now I do have a little gold drop on here, so I don't want to get too violent with the wobbly head, but there he is.
I think Matt's gonna like that one. I think he's gonna laugh with that one.
Yeah.
It's his type of card.
It sure is. So folks, just as we are wrapping up here, Darlene's just finishing up her card. I hope that you've got some tips and tricks from us tonight. If nothing else, I hope this has inspired you to get out whatever color medium you like to play with, or maybe just haven't played with in a while. Get it out and play with it and just see what it does. Make something cute, make something fun with no real purpose in mind. Just enjoy the process.
Totally agree.
I know I've really enjoyed coloring with Darlene here tonight, so thank you all for watching. Sorry, Darlene, I cut you off again.
No. I'm just adding a little small snowbank with this little tree. But here is mine. I do have to add a sentiment, not sure what, but either or, leaving it on its own is fine. But I also want to show you that, you know, if you wanted to make simple cards, with this one here, I just used the AALL Create washi tape. And I just did the faux snow with the glitter and, you know, added the light post from a third set, another Christmas third set. But other than that, using washi tape or painting your background, you have two different looks here. But with the washi tape, one thing I did do to make it look more like it was an evening, I actually inked on top of it with blue ink. So it's a little bit darker than the actual washi tape.
That's a fun idea too. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I certainly had fun. I hope you had fun. And I think we can look forward to another head-to-head challenge next week. So we'll have to figure out what our topic is, and we look forward to seeing you then. Any last words, Darlene?
No, thank you for joining us. I had lots of fun. This was fun.
All right, everyone. Good night, and we will see you soon.
Bye.